So this evening, we're very pleased to welcome Christopher Durkin, who's the Essex County Clerk. And he's been kind enough to volunteer to answer questions that we've put together on the upcoming vote by mail process. But before I introduce Chris and allow him to tell us what he does, I just thought for everyone here, I would just recap some of the key facts about the upcoming election. So what we all share the same frame of reference so that when we get into the questions, we're understanding the background. So in terms of voter registration, we now have online voter registration available in New Jersey, which has been a great innovation. And you can go online and register, and that's up until October 13th. You can register to vote. This November election will be primarily a vote by mail election, which means that all active registered voters will receive a ballot in the mail. Can I ask who's ever on the telephone? 923-746-1323.
It's Joyce Brown.
Mute yourself. Oh, I can mute you. Good. I've done that. All right. So that means that everyone is going to receive a vote by mail ballot, and those, I'm sure Chris will tell us exactly when those will go out, but the state expects them all to be mailed out by October 5th. When you get those ballots, you should vote, sign, seal the envelopes, and then you can return it in basically one of four ways. You can either mail it, put it in the mail. You can either drop it in a secure lockbox. You can take it directly to the election office in Newark, or you can take it to a polling location. On the Essex County Clerk's website, they've already published the drop box locations for Essex County, and they will probably shortly be publishing the polling locations. Chris, I haven't seen those yet, but I'm sure those are coming. Now, after you've mailed the ballot in or dropped it off, you have the ability to track the ballot through the same website. I should also say that sample ballots are also available on the Essex County Clerk's website. You won't be getting sample ballots in the mail, but those are available on the website. So if you want to see right now for your town the slate of candidates, you can go online to do that. So that's just the basic background. Just some other facts, the Dropbox locations, we had a question about whether they're under 24/7 video camera surveillance, and they are, is my understanding. But Chris can tell us more about that. And so I think that's it for background. So I'm gonna let Chris just explain what his role is for the election process. And then Chris, I'm going to start asking you the questions that our members have submitted. How's that?
That's great. That
okay,
great.
Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation. I truly appreciate it. As the county clerk, it's a constitutional office. It's a 5-year term, so it's happening right now as we speak. As far as the term is up for this office, and as far as elections go, the county clerk is in charge of printing all needed election material. We design the ballot. Also, we certify election results. We prepare and mail out all vote by mail materials. And also we register business names in the county. We process U.S. passports. We swear in notary publics. We issue identification cards. I even have the pleasure of being able to marry people. I had 2 marriage ceremonies today. So outside in the park, very nice. So I'm honored to serve the public as the county clerk. Especially, it's an honor to be engaged in the election process and voting. And I appreciate everything the League of Women Voters do to encourage democracy and in turn, the betterment of our communities. What you do is really freedom of speech. Voting is our greatest right. So the promotion of engaging people and enfranchising people, I always say, I think it brings people closer to their community if they vote. They feel more engaged, more responsible for the success of their community. So I'm always looking for 100% engagement in the voting process, and that's what you do every day. So I appreciate that, and I'm here for questions. Anything you need about your service.
Great, thank you. Our first question, and I'm just going to ask them because it's just more efficient that way. And if we get through these, then I'll open it up to the rest of the group. But the first question's around voter registration. For the paper forms, can you explain what is the turnaround time for when a voter registration form is received and when someone is registered? And then what is the timing for a vote by mail ballot to go out? There's some concerns that it seems like the October 13th cutoff seems too late to receive the paper registrations and then be able to mail out ballots in time for the election.
It's a great question. And yeah, if I was recommending registering to vote, I'd recommend doing it online. I'd recommend handing in your application. So when the middle person is the U.S. Postal Service. So if you're going to mail your hard copy in, it could take obviously time to get to the county office. And then when it's inputted, the information, it takes 36 hours to 48 hours to be confirmed as a registration, because the information asked for is either your driver's license number or the last 4 digits of your social security number. That information goes through the statewide system to verify who you say you are is who you are. So it takes a little time. It's pending for about 48 hours to be confirmed. Once it's confirmed, that's when we can mail the vote by mail ballot to you. So the lag time is in mailing an application. The Commissioner of Registration has caught up with entering registrations. So as of this morning, the Commissioner of Registration was 1,000 registrations behind, but that 1,000 came in from 9 o'clock last night till 9 o'clock this morning. So it's a rolling basis of registrations coming in through the online voter registration or through the mail. So yeah, it's really up, it's sped up the process. We actually have a lot of people in registration, voter registration entering. So we're pretty much caught up, but the issue is the mail service getting here.
And it sounds like, though, that online actually might be the better solution, that we should be, to all extents and purposes from now on in, trying to encourage people to do it online. Where
I agree. I agree. The link can be emailed, texted, and then that registration goes right to the Commissioner of Registration's office, and they can print out the form and enter it. So that's the fastest way.
Okay. And do you know how up to date the voter registration database is? If a voter believes that they've registered but can't find their name, then what should they do? What is the best number to call? Is it the Commissioner of Registration's number?
It's the Commissioner of Registration. It's 973-621-5061. 621-5061. It's very important to have your registration current, up to date, because without that, the ballot will not reach you. And also the postcard, which you just mentioned, the postcard which we are going to mail to each registered voter is going to tell the voter, if you do not vote by mail, you can vote on your polling place on a provisional paper ballot. If you're a disabled voter, you can utilize the audio component of the voting machine to vote. But if the registration is not correct, you will never receive your election ballot.
Right, right. What is the best way to update your signature for mail-in ballots, or to see how you signed it originally? Because we know that there have been problems with mismatched signatures. That's one of the reasons why ballots have been rejected. So if voters wanted to either find out how they signed it or to update their signature, how would you suggest they do that?
So they'd have to call the Commissioner of Registration. So the Commissioner of Registration has that information, the signature on file. And that signature on file is either from the first time you registered to vote or from when you updated your registration. You might have changed your address, changed your party, changed your name. Then that signature becomes your current signature. You can update it either by using a mail form, a voter registration form, which you would just check off update signature. So it's an all-inclusive voter registration form. Or you can update your signature utilizing the online voter registration, but only if you go in using your social security number. If you go in using your driver's license number, that just maintains your already registered signature at DMV. You're not able to update your signature at DMV online, only through your social security number.
Yes, and I've noticed that on my driver's license, my signature is on my driver's license. I'm assuming that's the signature. It's on file,
right.
Which is just a scroll. So, that's why for me, I'm happy that my signature is how it is in the polling books, a full signature as if from when I originally registered to vote.
That's correct. And the DMV, in the years past, they've had the pads where the writing is thicker,
Yes.
and it's not as clear. So that's the biggest issue we found with DMV signatures.
Right. So talking about signatures, and when it comes time to now counting the votes, when the ballots come in, who decides on whether the signatures match or not? What training do they have? Is there oversight from a nonpartisan group while this happens? Can you walk us through the process of how the ballots are certified, meaning through signatures, and then counted?
Sure can. And it's a bipartisan effort. So the Board of Elections, which counts the ballots. So the Board of Elections counts the vote by mail ballots, and the Board of Elections counts the provisional ballots. The commissioners, there's 4 commissioners on the Board of Elections, 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats. The president of the Board of Elections is a Republican. So those 4 members, the 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, are the ones who, either approve or disapprove of a ballot based on signature. So then there's bipartisan employees, Democrats, Republicans, who are overseen by the clerk to the Board of Elections, who was appointed by those 4 commissioners, the 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats. So I know you said there are no signature experts, it's the eye. And what's so important now is that there is a law, and I really think it was tragic previous to the primary in elections past, that signatures that did not match were excluded, were disenfranchised, those ballots, and they never had an opportunity, the voter never had an opportunity to update their signature or notify that their signature didn't match, that their ballot did not count. So now with this new law, which came into effect, it was a compromise. The governor, along with many groups that were so instrumental in pushing this and enfranchising voters, and now it's been strengthened in the general. In the primary, it said that if your signature did not match, if the commissioners deemed your signature didn't match, you had 17 days after election day to update your signature on a cure letter, and your ballot will count. As an example, there were 1,200 ballots that were deemed disqualified based on signature in the primary. 521 were cured, and the signatures were updated and the ballots were counted. Here's the added benefit to the law and to the general election, is that if you do not include your signature, so it's not just if your signature didn't match, but if you forgot to put your signature on the certification envelope, or you tore off that do not detach flap and did not include it, you will receive a cure letter. And that cure letter must be sent within 24 hours of the denial of your ballot. So it's another reason why it's important to get your ballot in as soon as possible, because then if your signature does not match or if your signature is not on there, you'll get your cure letter in time, but then you have quite a bit of time after election day till November 21st, 18 days after election day, to cure your signature and have your ballot counted.
That's great. And then how does that work? So the voter gets the letter, and then what are they to do then?
Great question. So the voter has 3 options. The voter can fill out the cure letter, name, address, signature, can email it back. So can scan it in, take a picture of it, email it back, can fax it back in, or can hand it in person, or can have a courier or a bearer bring it back for them. And then that new signature gets scanned in as the updated signature in the file, and the ballot counts.
Got it. Okay. That should, because I think something like half of all the ballots in the primaries were rejected due to signature issues, either missing signatures or mismatched signatures. So that should be quite a bit of an improvement going into November. Still
Yes.
won't help with the deadlines though. So I'm assuming though, if ballots are not counted because the deadlines were missed, meaning they came in after the cutoff date, 7 days after election day, though, then voters will not receive a letter about that.
So as long, no, as long, actually, that's why the deadline is November 21st to cure your ballot, your signature, because that allows for that more time for the ballots to come in. Because as you know, 7 days, ballots can come in through the mail as long as they're postmarked on election day or prior, up to 7 days after election day. That then allows the Board of Elections, if they received ballots on the 7th day and signatures were not there or the signatures didn't match, there's still 14 days.
Got it. Beyond that.
Actually, there's not 14 days. There's still
7.
No, till the 21st. So that'd be the 10th, 11 days. So
11.
it would still be 11 days till November 21st in order for the voter to cure their signature and have their ballot counted.
Got it. Okay, I guess the key thing for us to keep in mind though is that curing really only relates to signature issues. If there are any other problems with the ballots, like if they were defaced in some way, or as you said, you know, whatever, or they miss all the deadlines, that the ballots just get in too late, then there's nothing that can be done about that.
That's correct. And another issue would be if anyone overvoted. You know, if you have one choice for an office and you vote for 2, you know, you're not going to get another chance. That vote for that office will not count, but the other votes for other offices that you did correctly will count.
Right. I think it's also good that you clarify the options as to how to return that cured signature letter. Some people think you can drop it in a Dropbox, but that's not what you're saying. You're saying it has to go back through email, fax, courier, back to your office, etc., but not to drop.
It's funny you said that because, you know, technically you would be able to utilize the secure ballot Dropbox up until election night at 8 p.m. because election night at 8 p.m., all the secure drop boxes will be locked so that no ballots or any mail can go into those secure ballot drop boxes after the polls are closed at 8 p.m. on election day.
That makes sense. Okay. All right. So then moving on, that's great. That's very helpful clarification. So what oversight is happening at the post office to ensure that, for example, non-postmarked ballots actually arrive to the county clerk, you know, the next day? Because we know that that was also a problem, that some ballots just didn't get a postmark. So if they get lost in the mail, you don't know when, you know, you can't prove that they were actually mailed on election day.
Right, that's correct. And, you know, we've been in constant daily contact with the post office, with the postmaster, with the Attorney General's office, in conjunction with the Attorney General's office, also with our congressional delegation. Since Congress is a federal office and the United States Postal Service is they're federal employees of the federal office itself. So we've been utilizing contacts there so that they're more responsive to us. And they've been great. I think they've come a long way. I mean, we had a serious issue during the May elections and that was the height of the pandemic, as you know. And so we had issues with deliveries during the pandemic. I think the Postal Service has come a long way since then. We're getting a lot of good response from voters as far as timeliness of ballots getting to the voter and coming back. And here's another law that helps the voter. And so sometimes you just mentioned about the postal office. They do not always postmark mail. So a ballot has up until 2 days after election day, 48 hours after election day, to come in without a postmark and still be counted. So if a ballot comes in up to 2 days after election day and it does not have a postmark because it has been proven that the post office doesn't postmark every piece of mail, those will count. But you know, we're in daily contact, and you know, I feel good about the response from the postmasters in New Jersey.
Good. Still on the subject of counting, When does the counting of the ballots actually start? And is it so the polls close and then what happens?
Okay, so actually, previous to this general election, the law was in New Jersey, you could not start counting ballots until election day, technically until 6 a.m. So, because at 6 a.m. on election day, that's when the voting machines would have started tabulating. That's when you could start tabulating the vote by mail ballots. That's when our counting would happen. There's a new law signed by the governor, passed by the legislature, that in New Jersey now we can start counting 10 days prior to election day, which is going to help quite a bit, because if we're expecting 340,000 paper ballots overall, it's important to be able to count beginning 10 days prior to election day, so that by election night at 8 p.m., we're going to have a significant amount of ballots counted, so that we can report a good amount of results. So that's great, but also just as far as security goes, every room where ballots are have to have 24-hour video surveillance. And in the counting room of ballots, there's streaming video. And it's a bipartisan effort. Democrats and Republicans in the room, like I said, overseen by the clerk of the Board of Elections, who's appointed by the 4 commissioners, 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats, who oversee the whole process. So that's what's important. It's everything now is videoed, and that's for challengers. Also, there's video for challengers who want to challenge ballots, who they don't think are qualified voters. So it's now all streaming and all online and video.
My understanding is also on the counting, even though the counting will start 10 days prior, that there will be no daily tallies, though, of the count.
Another great point, and that's part of the law, that if there's a report run of results at any time, it's a 3rd-degree felony for that person running the report. So pretty stiff penalty, because I understand they don't want any results to be divulged to any campaigns or to the public before 8 p.m. on election night.
In order not to influence the election results. That's
exactly.
Great. Thanks for that clarification. Great. So moving on from vote counting now to voter tracking. If for some reason you can't create a tracking ballot account online, which I couldn't do in the primary, for example, what is the next step?
The next step is the county clerk's office does produce files on a daily basis of all those ballots that have been returned. Names, addresses, dates that they've been received. And we've, in past elections, we have distributed those files to anyone who's asked. So we've gotten campaigns who want to know, or someone from the public who wants that file. So we produce that file every day and distribute it. So that's another way. Plus, we're also looking to see if we can have a program at essexclerk.com where you could search your name and see if and when your ballot's been received to be counted by board.
I think there's great public interest in doing that. People have gotten used to that technology with Amazon being able to track packages, and so they feel, why can't I do the same thing with my vote by mail ballot, to be reassured that, to follow it all the way through the line, that it's been accepted and finally counted.
I agree.
So, okay. Is there a reason for the voter to make note of their barcode on the mailing envelope?
No, the barcode contains that voter's information. So when the ballot comes back to the Board of Elections, there is a scan gun. That scanner scans the barcode, just like you said, Amazon and ShopRite, and it then uploads that information into the file with the date and time of that ballot being received. And that's the information that is on the New Jersey Division of Elections website. Hopefully we will have it on essexclerk.com, and that is the information that we distribute to anyone in the public who asks.
Okay. On election day, now moving into maybe, if you need help, this is where the league, could volunteer. Do you have enough poll workers or election workers? Do you need more?
So, we always welcome poll workers, board workers, and that phone number to call is 973-621-5072. It's 973-621-5072. And the training is going on right now. And it's Zoom training, it's video training. So it's, it's not too strenuous. You don't have to leave your house to get trained. And there's many roles of board workers. I mean, even from greeters of voters to poll workers who are at the table and welcome the voters to direct them to their correct district, to the poll workers who are cleaning the surfaces after every voter, or setting the voter up with a partition in order to vote, making sure that they have their the correct provisional ballot for that voter, or the poll workers who are helping the disabled voter vote on a audio component of the voting machine. Poll workers can also be an assister for the ballot, and they would document themselves on the certificate as the assister helping that voter.
Great. And then also there's a New Jersey voter hotline. That's a state hotline, I assume. That's 1-877-NJ voter. Is that also, if that needs to be manned with more volunteers, that's also something that the league, I think, would be willing to do. So if you want to put us in contact with whoever's manning those hotlines, we'd be more than happy to do that too. You mentioned assistance, and there's one question that we've had on bearers that can deliver up to 3 ballots, but our understanding is only directly to the election office, not to the polling location, not to the drop box, not to the post office.
Well, to be technical, as far as the polling site, a voter can only bring their ballot, right? So there can be no bearers or carriers of a ballot other than your own ballot to the polling place. But technically, a person can only be a carrier or a bearer of 3 other people's ballots, and that includes the secure ballot drop box. That includes the United States Postal Service, and that includes bringing a ballot back to the Board of Elections. So it's 3 other ballots, other than your own ballot, that you can be the carrier or bearer of that ballot to a secure mailbox or to.
Can do that, okay? Because there was some misunderstanding that it was
documented, and it's very important that the bearer or carrier of that ballot signs the outside of that ballot in the presence of that voter, because that's the chain of custody of that ballot. So you can't take the ballot and walk into the Board of Elections and it not be already signed, the bearer information filled out already, because then the Board of Elections, they don't know where that ballot where it was. If that information is not filled out before they walk into that office.
Right, and you have to have ID if you're doing that, if you're going into the election office.
Correct, if you're going to the Board of Elections, you need ID. If you're going to the post office or the secure ballot drop box, you obviously don't need ID.
Right. Okay, and then what, just in general, Chris, what are the safeguards to protect our ballots, in the face of all the concerns that the public now has, and they've been told, and all the information that's going out around vote by mail, what reassurances can you tell us to give to the people that we come in contact with to feel okay that this is going to be a fair and accurate election?
Okay, what I would say is the process begins here with sworn government employees who are preparing the ballots, mailing the ballots out, and those ballots are carried by sworn federal officers of the Postal Service. And then on the return, if you choose to put your ballot in a secure ballot drop box, those are monitored by 24-hour video surveillance. They are on public property, whether it's municipal property or county property. They are picked up, the contents are picked up on a daily basis and brought back and scanned in. If you return your ballot to the United States Postal Service, it's being brought back by federal officers. If you're bringing it back in person, obviously you're bypassing any of the other options. And then the ballot is returned and it is verified by a bipartisan commission. 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats who manage that office, who are, like I said, check signatures, verify whether or not a ballot is valid or not, and follow the law. And, you know, and I think it all works towards the benefit of the voter, to the process, and included with the laws that have, you know, enabled more options for having voters' ballots counted based on signature or lack of signature. I think that's very important to, you know, increase inclusion in the process.
Right. It seems like we've gone from, you know, the May special election, which was painful. And we know here in Montclair in particular, we know, you know, there was some pain associated with that, with uncounted ballots. And then we made some improvements for the July primaries, learned more, and made further improvements now for the November election. So it seems like we have tried to learn by doing in this process and try and enhance security of the process as each time we do it. But, you know, the big tsunami is now going to be in November, so I'm sure we're bracing ourselves. It sounds like, Chris, that you anticipate being able to count a big chunk of the ballots the night of or the day after. Is that true?
Absolutely. I feel that having that 10-day lead before election day, every day counting ballots, and especially, like I said, in the primary we received over 115,000 ballots. On election night, we had 100,000 ballots counted. So, and that was the 14-hour, we could only start at 6 a.m. On election day. So 100,000 ballots counted in that one 14-hour period, which was an incredible effort to have done. But now having that lead time, and like I said, it's going to be, you know, triple the ballot total of the primary. So it's very important to have that lead time, and also for, you know, to make sure everything is done in the correct manner, and it's also, you know, done with, you know, the cure letters and people getting their ballots counted by election day, you know, to be in that count for election night reporting.
Okay, great. I noticed, Chris, if you're not too exhausted, I have some questions that have come in through the chat, which I'd like to ask you about too. The first question is, how often are the ballot boxes going to be emptied?
On a daily basis, so every day. So it's interesting, I know you brought up earlier about when we are mailing the ballots. We intend to mail the ballots this Friday, so September 25th.
Great.
We are mailing ballots. On that day, this Friday, all of the secure ballot drop boxes will be unlocked. So they're currently locked. So you cannot put any mail in the secure ballot drop box today. So we're unlocking the ballot drop boxes on Friday, mailing all the ballots on Friday. And then they, like I said, will be locked on election night at 8 p.m. So that no more mail can go in there.
Okay, great. And when will the polling locations be announced?
So they are confirmed.
Okay.
They should be announced any day. Obviously, they will be posted at EssexClerk.com, posted the Board of Elections website, and also, like I said, all voters, registered voters, will receive a postcard telling them, but that's not till 10 days prior to election day, telling them of their polling place, of why this election is being managed the way it is being managed, and they can view the sample ballots at EssexClerk.com.
Right. That's the October 23rd date for those postcards, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Can 2 people share a day working as poll workers? And what age do you have to be? Is there a cutoff to being too young or too old to do it?
Well, 18 is the usual cutoff, but there have been high school students younger than 18 that have worked with programs to get them engaged. And as far as sharing, that is based on need. So the Board of Elections makes that decision on whether or not, but that's a great question on sharing, you know, a 14-hour day. You know, maybe you prefer 7 hours, and it's $200 a day Plus, if you pick up any of the books or information in the morning, you get an extra $12.50. And if you drop off any of the material at night, you get an extra $12.50. So you could make $225.
Oh, okay, good to know. There's also a question about videos. I've seen the PSA video that you produced that's on your website, but will you also have a video about how to fill out the ballot as you had for the primary?
I do. I have a video. I produced it this past Friday. So it's on YouTube. It's on Facebook. We've been circulating it through email. So I will email that link to you right after this call.
Great. And then another question about in-person government employees on site monitoring the mail and drop boxes. It doesn't sound like it. It sounds like you have video surveillance.
Yes. It's video surveillance. Obviously I said all ballot drop boxes are on public government property. With that municipal government right there out in the open with the video surveillance. And like I said, a daily pickup every day. All the contents of ballots will be picked up and will be brought back to the Board of Elections to be scanned in as received.
Right. And just out of curiosity, somebody has, do you know what the pace of new voter registrations are so far this year compared to previous year or other presidential election years?
So to me, the high watermark was 2008, the first Obama election, Obama-McCain election. It was close to 70,000
new voters.
Registrations. We're talking through the year, and that included. We're talking the full year because that included a very contentious and combative primary for both the Democrat and Republican parties. So that year, not only was there a huge, increase in voter registration in the primary, but also the general. This primary, we did not see as big a voter registration drive. And that might have been because of our, because it was pretty much decided. Both parties pretty much had it decided. But we are seeing, I think they just came out saying there was 138,000 online voter registrations statewide since September 4th.
Wow.
So that's incredible.
That is incredible. Right.
And that's kind of right now replacing the in-person. And it's so beneficial to have that, being that in years past, people were out, on the sidewalk, and that's not as prevalent.
We know.
Being able to afford that link. I know, it's right.
We've done a lot of sidewalk. A lot of the ladies on this call have done a lot of sidewalk pounding.
I know that.
Registration, but that's fantastic that the online has taken off. So that also means that your communication of how you've communicated it has gone out quickly too, so that people are aware of it. So that's great. Okay, we have another question. I think I know the answer to this one, but I'll let you answer it. Can you drop in your ballot into any drop box or only in your own district or town?
So any drop box, and you knew the answer. So any drop box within Essex County,
right?
You can drop your ballot into. I would not advise out of county people to do it because you think you're bypassing the Postal Service when we receive the ballot. We put it in the post office. We send it to the county where it belongs through the Postal Service. So it's not helping. To put your ballot in a different county's secure mailbox. But yeah, anywhere.
You might be slowing it down because you just have to mail it then for that.
Right. You are slowing it down.
Right. There's a comment here that there seems to be a perception that a lot of people still don't know that it's a full vote by mail election in November. How is the state and county governments going to get out the word as we get closer to election day?
Well, it's through public service announcements. Like you said, I put out a 30-second ad on Comcast, Cablevision, Fios, all social media. The executive order came out on August 14th. The state has had a campaign, which can be better. You know, I don't think, like you just said, it doesn't seem as though it's reached beyond the surface or the people who are super engaged. And you said that's our biggest fear, is someone receiving a ballot in the mail saying, hey, I didn't request this ballot, and thinking, you know, that it's not for them, or, you know, that they're not going to vote on it. So it's very important for people to know the executive order, to know the manner of the election, to know that that's an official mail-in ballot, and that the governor and the state legislature mandated primarily a vote by mail election. And so what the governor and the legislature did, in essence, is remove the step from the process, the step of having to proactively apply for your ballot. So it's giving you a couple of chances. It's saying, we're going to give you a ballot to begin with. We're going to mail a ballot to you. And then if you don't get it, you can request another ballot from the county clerk's office. If you don't get that, you can have a third chance at your polling place and vote on a provisional paper ballot as your third opportunity to vote. So it's many chances at voting.
I think that's a helpful way to put it, that it's not just, a restriction on voting, which some people have, view it as, oh, I can't go in person to my polling location. It's really opening up a bunch of different alternatives in the middle of a pandemic. That's why this is being done, for public health and safety. So, great. I'm going to now, Chris, because we just have a couple more minutes, I'm just going to now open it up. If anybody wants to ask a question now, you can I'll unmute you for any other questions.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Carmel, go ahead.
I was just wondering, if the voter registration application is not complete, do you alert those folks that they need to give you additional information?
So that's the Superintendent of Elections Commissioner Registration's office. And I know what you're saying is there's a lot of voters who forget to sign the registration form. And yes, they are supposed to be sent, I'm not going to speak for them, they're supposed to be sent a notice saying that you have an incomplete voter registration form. And then that is part of on election day. So if you don't have your signature and you mail your ballot in, that signature then counts. That is then uploaded as your signature into the system. But yeah, the voter is supposed to receive a letter telling them that they do not have a complete registration and to do another registration form.
You sound a little dubious about whether that actually happens.
Well, I'm saying it's supposed to happen. I'm not saying dubious. I'm just saying that that's supposed to happen. I just don't manage that.
Okay.
So I'm just telling you what the process is. I have every trust that they do it. I just know that that's not my department.
Okay.
Susan?
So if I knew somebody that had registered 2 months ago and they are still not showing up on the am I registered, should I have that person just re-register, or is there?
They should re-register. They should re-register online. And I'll tell you, that's a great example. So in a meeting this morning, they talked about the Commissioner of Registration's office, that they are getting a lot of duplicate registrations. So registrations that they put in 2 weeks ago, they're getting another form. And I'm sure it's that case that you're talking about. But many cases like that, where people do not see their information on the Am I Registered file. And so they're doing it again. So they're getting a lot of duplicates. And again, like I said, even if it's a 2-day lag just to begin with registered, because a registered voter, when you're entering it, it's a pending status for about 2 days before the person is actually live and registered. So forgetting about the mail process, getting it, and then the lag time of entering it. So you can mail your ballot and then it's being entered 10 days after you mailed it. And then it's another 2 days to actually be live in the system. That's 12 days. So, and in that meantime, you might say, hey, why aren't I registered? And then you do it online to make sure. So they're getting a lot of that, which is a good thing. I mean, people are just being proactive and emphasizing to make sure that they are registered.
And then I had a follow-up to that. So this friend of mine actually doesn't have a signature. So has to use a paper ballot, or a paper voter registration form. But I personally signed up for voter registration 32 years ago or something. So the signature that's on my license is not the one that's for my vote by mail. It's the one that's in the polling book from 32 years ago, right?
Yeah, it's from your register. It's not from your, unless you went to the DMV and changed your address and updated your voter registration by changing your address and signed doing that. But if you just go and renew your license, you're not changing your signature on the voter registration file.
Right, okay. But that would happen after.
So let me ask you, if you usually go to the polls, yep. And it's interesting you said that, because you go to the polls and you look in the poll book opens up to your page and you can see how you're registered. And it's funny because I'm registered without my middle initial, and now I sign with my middle initial. And I look at the poll book and I say, oh, I'm going to sign without my middle initial because that's how I'm registered. Right. And I could easily update it. I haven't. So I'm just aware of that when I do vote by mail, that I'm not putting my middle signature, my middle initial. But that's interesting because that happened to a lot of people, especially we talked about May 11th election, where 90% of the people who vote in person and just looked at their signature from when they're registered and just matched it. Oh, that's my signature. And maybe I have updated it, but I'm getting to look at it. I'm getting to sign. Now they have a vote by mail application, vote by mail ballot. And now, like you said, they registered 32 years ago. They now have a different signature, and that rejected a lot of ballots. But at that time, they could not remedy it. They could not cure it. And it was a tragedy in that election, for people to be disenfranchised based on that.
But I'm sorry, I'm being a little dense here. So my driver's license is not the signature I should be using. I should be using the signature that I remember that I did 32 years ago. I have moved since then, but I moved 10 years ago. That's not going to get caught up in the system, right?
No.
Right.
No, okay. Unless if you moved and you did an updated voter registration form as a change of address, you did not. Okay. So that's how you would update your speed. So naturally, if you did a voter registration form as a change of address or change of party or change of name, any change to your voter registration, it includes your signature. So you would sign, and that would be your new signature on file. It wouldn't be your old signature. Does that make sense? So any action.
I must have done that. Yeah, I must have. But it was 10 years ago.
You must have done it. So that time, 10 years ago, you had to do it because you had to update your address, and you had to sign the form, and that signature then becomes your new updated signature on file.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I just have one question. This is a personal thing that happened to me last week. I decided to try to see if I was registered, and I was not. And so I called, and I've gotten all my paper ballots and over the years, and I actually voted in the primary. But when I called the office, they told me my birthday was wrong. So I asked at the office, do I have to because the only changes are the address and, other things. So she said no, but the problem is now I can't track my vote because it's still not, she said she changed my birth date. And, that was, my first election was in 72. And so they had me like 2 years younger. So they have even two elections, right? In 72 and 73. So I'm just want to make sure I don't have to do anything else because
so you're saying that they did update it in the system. So you're saying that they updated
they told me they were putting my correct birthday in.
So then if they did that, then you should be updated, you should be able to track your ballot if your birth date is correct.
Right.
Because
And-
if your birth date is correct, you said it, you put in your name and then the month and year of your birth, and that'll
Right.
give you your voter ID number, and then you can use your voter ID number to track your ballot.
Yeah, it's not working now. Now, I did it I think I found out last week, because I just wanted to make sure when was doing tabling, I wanted to make sure that it works and that it worked for me, but it didn't. So should I call the office again, the registration office, just to make
Yes.
sure? Okay.
Yes, I would recommend 973-621-5061.
Yeah.
Call them just to verify that your date of birth is correct.
Okay.
Because you said it, if your date of birth is not correct, then you can't get your voter ID number. You're still going to get your mail. You're still going to get your ballot.
That's right.
Because your name and address correct.
Okay. So, and I'm wondering how many, because the last time I changed it was probably 1983. I've been here since then. So, yeah, so it just, many people might not be able to get in because of a, missed data, so I don't know.
No, that's right. And what's interesting is you said it. So if you sent in, if you sent in a corrective one,
Yeah.
this is where some people will be registered twice, because if you sent in with a different date of birth, they might say, is this a different person? You could say if it's 2 years apart, same, address, it's got to be the same person. But, there's some more difficult decisions to make than that. On is this the same person? It's the same name. Is it a father son? Is it a
Right, that happens in us. Yeah.
that gets
My
tough
husband's
to
a junior,
decide.
so yeah, we have that. But yeah, okay. So I just want to make sure that that your office is aware that birth dates are not allowing people to track their votes or see if they're registered. So just so that you know.
Thank
That's
you.
very important to know, because you're right, because you need the month and date, the month and year
Yeah.
of your birth to track your voter ID and track your ballot.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I think we're coming to a close, and I think we set a world record, Chris, for the number of questions in 60 short minutes that we peppered you with. But we thank you very much for all the very valuable information that you shared with us. And we know, and on behalf of our league, we want to express our appreciation to you and your whole team, because we know how hard you're working these days, and we're here to support you up until November 3rd and beyond.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation and the opportunity. I truly appreciate it.
All right, and thank everybody else for attending, and get out the word and stop any spread of misinformation now about vote by mail. We're counting on you. So thanks again.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you again, Mr. Durkin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.